Thank you everyone for joining us today. Before we commence today's session, we'd like to acknowledge with respect the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the first peoples, educators and innovators of this country, and pay our respects to the traditional owners and elders, past and present, of the land on which we stand today. In the spirit of reconciliation, we also acknowledge the valuable contribution that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples continue to make to James Cook University and the broader community. Now, I'd like to introduce today's presenter, Hannah Drewett. By day, Hannah is a full-time business development manager at Aranex, an award-winning professional conference organizer specializing in large-scale international events across Australia and New Zealand. Hannah holds a Bachelor of Business and a Master of Digital Communication and has over 5 years' experience in marketing and events within the higher education sector. Beyond her day job, Hannah is a social media strategist with a side business called Latte Social, where she helps brands and individuals elevate their online presence. She's worked with clients from various industries to boost engagement, increase sales, and build lasting connections. And she's coached other business owners and entrepreneurs on personal branding to help them stand out of the online crowd. So without further ado, I will pass you over to Hannah.
Thank you. I am super excited to be talking to you all today about personal branding and social media. I'll jump in and share my screen. Okie dokie. All right, so personal branding is something that I think has become more popular in the last couple of years. People are starting to really realize the potential and the opportunities that come from having your own personal brand aside from maybe the business that you work for or the business that you own. So this is something I definitely wish I knew about more when I first started my career and was at university. So hopefully some of the tools and topics that we talk about today are helpful for you. Now, the objectives of this session is to really understand what a personal brand is and why it's so important, to identify your own unique personal brand and craft your personal elevator pitch, and also to learn how to leverage social media to grow your personal brand. So to give you a bit of a background about me, I'm Hannah. I studied a Bachelor of Business at JCU, majoring in events management and marketing years ago. In my sort of second year of studying, I landed a job in the events team at JCU full-time, and it was through that role as the activations officer at JCU, we were given social media at a point in time. So that's when I sort of started delving into the world of social media, as well as we were doing events at the university, and started learning a lot about social media marketing and how that can be implemented for other businesses as well. So COVID hit and I had nothing else to do in my spare time. So I was actually approached by a hairdresser who asked if I could look after their socials. And immediately I said, absolutely not, wouldn't know what to charge you or how to do it for other businesses. And later thought I'd look into it a little bit more and see what it was all about. So I did some courses on becoming a social media manager, what that looked like. And then in true type A style, I had to go even further and study a Master of Digital Communication to make sure I really knew what I was talking about. And it was about halfway through that master's degree that I went back to her and said, actually, I'm feeling quite confident now I can do your socials for you. So I sort of started a bit of a side business and word quickly spread. So I had a couple of businesses that I was managing their social media for to grow more of a presence and a community. And from there, I did that for about a year, just on the side while I was sort of managing the full-time job and the full-time study, just seeing how it would all work. And about at the end of that master's degree, I decided to launch Latte Social publicly and open up to some more clients and some different service offerings. So that's when I made an Instagram account and sort of went public. That was at the start of the week. And by the end of the week, I already had 4 or 5 coffee dates locked in with business owners around Townsville to do a social media audit for their accounts. And this is what really lights me up, is getting to meet people, giving them little suggestions and things that they can do themselves to really elevate their presence and therefore help their business grow. Earlier last year, I moved from Townsville to Brisbane to take on a new full-time job as the business development manager for a professional conference organizer down here who manages large-scale national and international conferences and incentives around Australia and New Zealand. So my role is really the sales process and the relationship management, and Latte Social is the side business that keeps growing on the side, and I'm quite happy having the full-time job and the side hustle as it is. So we have been growing accounts. So I usually manage around 20 different accounts with, obviously clients have a variety of different accounts with under that. And then I've taken on a new staff member casually to help me this year, which is exciting. So we've been definitely working with more personal brands in the last 12 months, whether that be business owners that are looking for other opportunities, whether they were looking to start a podcast. I've had aspiring athletes that were looking at how they could get sponsorship and get started in the industry. So it's become a space that I've become quite passionate about. So to get started, what is a personal brand? So you might think when you say personal brand, that it's got to be someone with a lot of followers, maybe a celebrity, or someone that's like an influencer online, and you immediately think of people like, when I say their name, like Elon Musk or Martha Stewart, or it might be Billie Eilish, or whoever it might be. Immediately you have that sort of idea in your head of what their personal brand is, what their vibe is, how they talk, what colors you imagine with them. But the thing is, and whether you're aware of it or not, is that everybody has a personal brand. So it's the unique combination of skills, experiences, values, and characteristics that differentiate you and make you who you are. So personal branding is really the process of defining that and promoting what you stand for as an individual. So first impressions always count, and it's the relationships that you form with other people and the way you communicate, and all of these things are taken into consideration. But your personal brand should be really intentional. So it's how you want other people to perceive you, and what you're going to outwardly represent. So the goal is to really build a personal brand that feels good and authentic to who you are. It's going to feel very awkward and cringy and uncomfortable if you're trying to be somebody you're not. So it's something that has to be really authentic to who you are. And the goal is really to have a look at, there's quite a bit of self-reflection involved in the whole process to come up with your personal brand. And it evolves over time too. So you'll never have the perfect written in a paragraph personal brand of who you are. So the power of personal branding is what I'm quite passionate about. There are just so many opportunities and doors that open for you when you do put out there into the world what you're trying to achieve, who you are. So one of the main things being credibility. So showcasing your skills and knowledge really establishes yourself as an authority in your niche or whatever topic you might be interested in. Proactively sharing your work and accomplishments with others allows you to showcase your credibility. So another benefit would be the aligned connections in terms of your target audience. So you really want them to be magnetized towards you. You want to produce content and have a really amazing personal brand that those people that you're trying to target, whether that be potential clients or colleagues or collaborators one day or future bosses, to really be drawn to you and create a community online of like-minded individuals. Opportunities will present themselves with a strong personal brand. So doors will open for you, whether that's connections with mentors, it might be positioning yourself for that promotion you've been wanting, or new roles that you might get tapped on the shoulder for, because people immediately think of you if you've got that strong personal brand and you really put yourself in front of those key decision makers. Memorability is really huge as well. So having that lasting impression on when you meet or connect with someone, you'll often, if you go to a networking event or you follow someone online, it's the people with that really strong, consistent, bold personal brand or story that you remember. It's not the random person that you don't really connect with, and then you hand them an email address and there's nowhere to like follow up or connect with them or see what they're doing online. So where we're looking for today is having that presence online so that you've got that memorability, and your story and your value becomes more memorable if you've got that consistent personal brand. So what makes a strong personal brand? I think one of the key things is definitely having a unique story that people remember and actually resonate with. Storytelling is super powerful in the world of social media generally, but it's really how, as humans, we remember things. So if there's a story intertwined with it, you'll know your favorite brands or creators that you follow or people that you know, podcasters, different people always have a really strong story, whether that be from a transitional period, whether they've grown from something, they've gone through something, whatever that is, they've got a really strong story that they can share. Visual cues are huge. I've put the picture of Mel Robbins there because she's someone that anytime she pops up on your feed, immediately as soon as you see those black thick glasses, you'll know that Mel Robbins is going to be talking about whichever topic it is. She's got really consistent visual cues that people recognize immediately, and the yellow color scheme as well. So this doesn't have to be something you're wearing all the time. It could be particular colors. I know a lady that I bought her book recently, and she was at a networking event I went to, and she's always wearing a dark blue shirt in her book photo, in her podcast, in everything. And she told us at the conference that she intentionally then wears it everywhere because people resonate with that immediately and know that that's her. There's different things like having a consistent background. So that might be a podcast studio that someone always uses, or their office space, what that looks like. But having that consistency and those visual cues to help really lets people recognize who it is. And then one lady I follow also wears red lipstick all the time as well. Like anytime she's on TikTok or she's at an event, she's got bright red lipstick on, and you always immediately just, it's her personal brand. So different things like that help people resonate. Strong values are super important. If you were just jumping online to talk about making everybody happy and agreeing with everything and not having any sort of values or anything that you stand by, then you're not going to attract anybody, or no one's going to be interested in what you have to say because it's not different or specific values that people might resonate with. So you have to really stand for something and have your own opinion on things. And your values are really the backbone of your brand. So it's always, it could be anything from whether that's, you know, women empowerment or sustainability or innovation, whatever that might be, those values really need to be intertwined throughout your brand consistently. Consistency is the next one you'll hear a lot during this session. This is like consistent tone of voice, your consistent brand colors. It might be your consistent look and feel. It's you showing up consistently. It's everything, being quite consistent. And people, whilst you might find that quite boring and you might think wearing similar colors or clothes might be quite boring, or always using the same colors could be boring, for people to be able to clearly identify and recognize you and your personal brand, it should be really consistent. So the last one being engagement and authenticity. It's no good showing up online to just talk about a bunch of educational topics and hoping something sticks. People really want to build that relationship and that connection with you. So being able to connect with the audience, answer questions in messages, and being authentic when you show up and do that as well is huge. So it will feel really hard if it isn't authentic. So it'll feel difficult trying to show up as someone that you're trying to be rather than who you are. Now for some fun questions. If you've got a pen and paper, or you can write notes on your computer or whatever it might be, these are some questions. Now that we understand what a personal brand is and why you need one, this is going to be where we start crafting your own personal brand. So this doesn't have to be like a full answer to every question written down. It's more so just like certain themes or words that come up for you when you think about these questions. So first one being, what motivates you to wake up in the morning? What are your values and what is your purpose in life? Pretty big questions, so it doesn't have to be a complete answer. This will always evolve, but if you've got any initial thoughts. What are you good at and what are your strengths? What kind of tasks or projects energize you? In 10 years' time, what do you want to have achieved? Who do you admire and what do those people have in common? What do you bring to the table that others don't? So that could be anything from that you're more confident and you're happy to speak up, you don't mind public speaking, for example, and then others in your industry or colleagues might be a bit more shy. It could be that you're really great at, efficiency, and you can put, presentations together really quickly. And that's different to your industry for a certain reason. So there's a bunch of different skills. If you're in the creative industry, but you're also really good at numbers and budgets, that's another skill that you definitely be putting forward. What are your greatest achievements? And what do you bring to the table that others don't? What is your story? So that's what we were talking about before with having that theme to it. If you've, for example, studied a particular degree and you've taken that in a completely different direction, found you didn't like it, and you're studying something else, what's the story behind that? How did you land in your dream career or course that you're in now? And what's something that you could talk about for hours? So if you were asked to do this presentation on a particular topic, what would it be that you would talk about? So if it is, it could be anything from graphic design, it could be finance topics and savings and money, it could be literally anything. But for example, if you were going to ask me to talk about social media, I could talk about that for 8 hours all day long. I won't keep you here that long, but that is something that I know is very much a passion for me, given how much I could talk about it. So having those questions in mind and thinking about what sort of topics come up for you. So for example, my list or what themes are coming up for me would be social media and marketing and events, obviously personal branding, networking, and I love connecting with other women in business. I also love productivity and organization, as well as like career topics and side hustles, confidence and public speaking, and then also reading and listening to a lot of podcasts about personal and professional development. So they're the sort of themes and topics that come up for me when I start asking myself those questions. The thing is that this list is very unique to you. No one else is going to have this exact same list. So this is why it's hugely valuable to really understand your own personal brand. Now we'll look at crafting your own personal elevator pitch. So if someone walks up to you at a networking event, and says, "Who are you?" Do you confidently know exactly what to say, really concisely, or is that something that would make you quite nervous because you wouldn't know what exactly to say? So having your personal elevator pitch down pat will come in super handy. I know a million times already in my career, and I'm early into it. So in your lifetime, how many questions you're going to get asked about introduce yourself? It could be at a networking event where you've met someone. It could be at a boardroom or a round table where we're going around and introducing ourselves. It could be the very first question of every interview you're ever going to do, your LinkedIn bio, whatever it is, having this really nicely mapped out and concise, and making sure you give that value is going to be super important. So your personal or professional elevator pitch is your time to shine and demonstrate your skills, highlight your experience, and clearly communicate your values and goals. So it's called an elevator pitch because obviously you want to be able to say it in the elevator ride for 2 minutes. But keeping it really, really concise and packed with value is where it's going to get tricky. So you wouldn't, if you're at a networking event, for example, and someone says, "Who are you?" and you panic, and you might just say, "Oh, I'm Hannah and I like cats and Pilates and I've got this little side business doing social media." Immediately, no one's interested. It didn't pique their interest. They're not intrigued to know more. It's not really impressive. And there's nowhere to really go with that for them to ask questions. So instead, and a great example, I went to a conference earlier this week and had a graphic designer that I'd worked with before with me throughout the event, and she's curated a very, very good story in terms of her experience. So she would tell everybody that she was a high school teacher in Canada doing graphic design, obviously through Canva for all of her teaching stuff. Her and her husband moved over to Australia, and she sort of had to start again. And she started doing graphics online on Canva at home. And then Canva eventually paid her to make those graphics. So that was her role. She now started her own graphic design and web design business here in Brisbane. And she'd say because she's moved here, she's looking forward to connecting with new business owners and people. So straight away, she's got the story that's memorable that she's moved from Canada. You've also she's highlighted some achievements in there. So she said like Canva reached out to pay her as a creator on the side. She also highlighted that she was looking to work with new business owners because she works in the service-based industry. And it was memorable because she'd had that really concise short story, and it leaves room for someone else to follow up with questions. So the other thing of having a short, I guess, elevator pitch ready to go is that you don't want to, you could go one way and keep it really short, like I just gave an example before, and be, oh, I'm just a student, and, you know, leave it at that. You've not given any value. Or B, you can get quite nervous, and, you know, when you're trying to tell the story and you know you haven't given enough value, so then you keep talking and you haven't got to the end of your point yet, and you're digging a hole and you still can't get to the end of the point, and then you know you've spoken too long and it keeps going. And it's just word vomit. So you do not want to do that either. You want to be able to say it really succinctly and have that sort of forefront of mind ready to go whenever that question comes up. You're not going to get nervous or shy about it, but you also know how to give that value. So this really lays a strong foundation, ensuring that others remember you, and it's in a conversational tone too. So it doesn't need to be super formal and professional as you write it out. It could just be something that you know how to say out loud. So as a little activity, if you've got your computer or your phone up and ready to go, you can literally chuck in some of those words that we just went through into ChatGPT and ask it to spit out a personal elevator pitch for you. So give it, you know, your title, what you're doing right now, what your goals are, any of those themes that come up for you before, and ask it to write you that pitch, and then you can refine it from there. But it's a really good starting place to have that succinct sort of description of yourself, and see whether that aligns with you or whether you have changes to make, and just have that at the forefront of your mind. And once you've got that, and now that we've got an idea of what your personal brand and elevator pitch ready to go, you now have to share it. So without a strong personal brand, you are the world's best kept secret. That is, you could be working at an accounting firm, for example. You could be the best accountant in the firm and do amazing work and win awards internally and do whatever you want to do. But no one else is going to know that you're that amazing other than anyone at that organization if you're not sharing it somewhere online. So whether that be LinkedIn updates, whether that's you've established a personal brand on Instagram or TikTok or wherever you want to share those things, it needs to be shared with the world, and you need to be talking about the things that you're doing and achieving if you want those opportunities to come to you. So if you didn't share those things, you would be one of those people that are in your role and you think anytime there's a conference or a podcast interview or whatever it might be, like, I am the expert on that topic. Like, I can't believe they should have asked me, but no one knows that you even exist if you're not putting content out into the world about that particular topic. So it's really, really important to have the social media strategy in place next to that to really amplify and share your personal brand with the world. So it's all about being visible and making an impact, because yeah, you could be the most talented person in the room and no one would even know about it. So having that brand visibility and being really present on social media allows for when those opportunities come up, whether it is a podcast interview, whether it's a media interview, whether it's being invited as a panelist for a conference or whatever it might be, you're front of mind for a lot of people when they think of that particular topic that it might be. So now into the fun social media stuff. When it comes to leveraging social media to build a personal brand, obviously the key is to make yourself visible. So that's our main goal here. And it's a really powerful tool to be able to amplify your personal brand. This is quite a fairly new, not new concept, but it's becoming more and more popular that people are leaning towards personal brands online to be able to leverage that. No matter what business they own or project they're involved in, their name has that recognition, so that personal brand goes with them. So whether you sell a business and you move on to something else, or you start a podcast and you own a business, without that personal brand, you've got nothing other than the business name that might move on without you. So yeah, establishing this personal brand and leveraging social media to that is really important. Determining which platforms align best with your personal brand and target audience is going to be different for everybody. So the two things to keep in mind is something that obviously aligns with you and feels really authentic to you. So if you're someone that prefers writing copy and you like writing articles and you're not someone that wants to put your face out there or create content, then you might be leaning more towards LinkedIn articles and contributing to the LinkedIn conversations when those questions come up. On the other hand, if you're a real creative person, you want to get into social media management, you are in graphic design or something really creative where you want to share what that looks like, then you might be jumping on TikTok or Instagram to give those visuals of your personal brand. So that's something to keep in mind. The second thing with that is thinking about where your target audience is or where those opportunities actually are. So if you're in a large organization or in a law firm and your goal is really to get a promotion there or grow within the company, you'd be looking at LinkedIn to share those achievements and what you're doing and the things that you're doing extracurricular wise or any extra courses that you're taking or networking events you're attending to show that right in front of your colleagues and your boss and people that are on LinkedIn, right? On the other hand, if your goal is to score a new job, you're unemployed and you want to, score a new job at an advertising agency or a fashion brand, then you're going to want to be jumping on TikTok or Instagram to really leverage that reach and show those creative skills, because that's where those employers would be. So keeping those two things in mind when you consider which platform aligns best with you and then where your target audience actually is. Establishing your authority by sharing relevant and valuable content. That is your content pillars that we just spoke about in terms of what are those topics that come up for you when you're establishing your personal brand. Who are you? What are you about? What are your values? So sharing content on that and then consistently posting and sharing with others. Curating that really clear brand identity is going to be super important when you're putting yourself out there. As I said, you want to be like a magnet to other people that are interested in those topics. And the thing, unfortunately, about a magnet is that it's got another side and people are also not going to be interested in those particular topics as well. So I always joked about when I started my brand and I showed a lady my branding that was pink and red. And she was actually a graphic designer and she immediately said, oh, they're like super clashy and it's full on and awful, which was a bit disheartening. And then the next graphic designer I went to that absolutely loved the pink and red. And then a lot of people come up to me now and say, oh my God, I love your pink and red branding. So there's two different types of people. Obviously, I'm drawing in those that like the bold colors and that it's memorable and stands out. And then other people that are just going to hate pink and red and they're going to think it's awful, and that's totally okay. So it's just attracting those people that are in your audience that you actually, resonate with and want to work with in future. So just keeping that in mind. When the stronger your personal brand is, it's also going to push people away that aren't interested in that particular personal brand and topic. And that's okay, because you'd follow certain accounts online. You're not going to follow everybody. So if I was looking at someone with a personal brand that was really big on gardening and video gaming and horse riding, I'm not going to click the follow button and I'm not interested, and that's totally fine. So don't get disheartened when there's people that sort of are both ways. And the main thing obviously is to be really intentional about the brand that you're putting together and the way that it aligns with your career and your aspirations. So whatever those topics are, having that clear goal in mind of wherever you want to go career-wise. A really good example of personal branding and someone that I follow is Georgie Stevenson. So she is someone that's established a personal brand over many, many years. So this is probably more what it looks like when you've done the personal branding for years and all the opportunities are coming your way. Things that she talks about include money mindset, wellness. She's talking about motherhood, and she values being a working mum and what that looks like. Manifesting and meditation. She's obviously a businesswoman as well, and she talks a lot about personal growth and transformation. So if you went onto her page, those are all the topics that you would hear about. If you're interested in those different things, that would really resonate with you and you would feel connected to her. From that brand, or that personal brand, she's created a bunch of different businesses and monetized a lot of different elements. So she's got the Abundance Academy, which is learning about money mindset as a course. She runs Naked Harvest supplements. She's got YouTube and TikTok channels that have grown, talking about different things like mum life. You've got the Rise app and different courses and masterclasses, as well as a Rise and Conquer podcast, a lot about all of those different topics, retreats, you name it, anything she sort of puts her name to, all of those people in that world are going to be drawn to that particular topic. Something she does really well, and you'll see in her top 2 pinned posts there, is storytelling. So the middle one is a reel about like one day you're struggling to pay rent and then the next you're flying business class overseas. So it tells that little bit of a story of where she's grown from. And the other one is a carousel showcasing old photos of where they've started their business and how that's grown over the years. So people really do love the storytelling, and that's obviously her top performing posts. Something else she does really well is that she's constantly evolving and changing, and that's really important to consider as well. So whatever your personal brand topics might be right now, that might not be what you want to talk about in a year's time, and it might be not of interest to you in a few years, and that's okay. You don't have to come up with these topics and stick to it and think, oh, people really want to learn about this, or I really need to keep talking about this topic. It will evolve as you evolve, and that is totally fine. So she's gone through so many different storytelling and phases in her life, whether that was, with fertility, and now she's a working mum, whether that's with growing her business. She wasn't always talking about money mindset and being a businesswoman, because that's all just happened in the last few years where she's grown these businesses. So it evolves over time, but that's a good, I guess, example of all the different opportunities that can come from that. Jumping into some key trends in social media. The first one being employee-generated content. I don't know whether you'd heard of this before in terms of EGC versus UGC. Historically, a lot of brands would be outsourcing and paying either influencers or user-generated content creators to promote their products or services. What's become really popular in the last definitely 12 months, but slowly over years, is this concept of employee-generated content, where they're actually using the faces of the brand, the employees that work with them, as their, social media and faces of the brand. So gone are the days where they want you to just hide away and be an employee and not have an opinion or, share any of your personality. They're now putting their employees at the forefront of their social media channels, which has been a really interesting concept, because they want confident individuals that perhaps have already established a personal brand to be forefront on those accounts. So an example of that, I've put in the Kik screenshot there, where you've got Alice, who is the social media manager at Kik, and she gets all of the staff involved to the point where people are commenting like, where did she go on holidays? Why haven't we seen any Alice content? They've had to come back and say she's back from holidays. So people get really invested and they feel more connected to the employees, rather than we're savvy social media consumers these days. So we know that when it's UGC or influencers that are getting paid, it doesn't feel really genuine and authentic. So we struggle building trust. Whereas if it's an employee of the brand that is an actual advocate for the brand and really has those brand values, that's when you're going to feel that connection and build that trust with that brand. So that is definitely something to watch in the coming years. Using social media to showcase your work and call out for job opportunities has been something really interesting in the last year as well. I've got some examples on the next slide of where that's happened, but you'll see a lot of the time now for different careers and professions, people are actually sharing their work on social media to showcase what they can do. Even if they've got a job, they're just open to other opportunities and showcasing what their work looks like. And then on the other hand, we've also got a lot of brands now using social media to call out for the next employees. So you'll find some fashion brands recently were hiring for like marketing coordinators and different roles, and they were actually asked to create a TikTok, or they were sent clothes in a few examples, but they were asked to create content for that brand as if they were already working for that brand as part of the job description. So they're really looking for those people that are willing to step forward and put themselves out there on social media as brand ambassadors, as employees. The other trend at the moment is the corporate brands really embracing the trends and Gen Z social media managers. So gone are the days where larger brands are just going to hide behind a super professional, account where they don't talk about anything or jump into trends. Brands are understanding now they have to jump into these trends. They have to be on board. They have to reach their target audience. So this screenshot here with the comments was quite a funny video where a guy was saying how funny it is that behind these huge brands, there's Gen Z social media managers that are doing all the work and making sure that they're on trend and they're killing it on social media. And you think that these big brands, it would be the different sort of people behind them. And then all of these large brands, there was hundreds of comments from Estee Lauder, Google, Hyundai, commenting like, is this play about us? Or I've never felt more seen, showcasing the amount of like Gen Z or younger sort of social media managers keeping on top of these trends. So it's quite a lot of opportunity coming into the industry, which is really exciting. So to give some examples of those, we've got brands here that are absolutely killing it with the employee content that you can see with all their stats performs really well. So you've got Faith the Label, who literally always does different employee features and fit checks and whatever it might be. You've got, the faces of Remy by Riley and their staff. We've got Shameless Group, who do different interviews about what book the staff have all read and random things like what's the team's bedtimes, and everyone goes around and says what time they went to bed, and it performs so well for them compared to if they were just talking about, their product or service. And then you've got Jazz Handmade as well, who do really well with just talking about employees, jumping on trends, interviewing employees about different topics, and not one of them talk about what they sell. It's just sort of more subtly put into the content. So that's a huge EGC advantage. Then we've got the job seekers, I guess. So you've got Ivy went viral a few years ago now. She told a story on her TikTok about how she'd been made redundant from her previous role and she was looking for a PR job. And instead of going around and submitting resumes at every organization, instead she jumped on TikTok and she started doing a PR move series where basically all of these huge brands or any sort of saga, she would jump on and she'd say PR moves for this brand that I'd make if I was their PR consultant. And she'd have these really cool ideas, really interesting things, to the point where brands were commenting, like that Showpo example there, like, oh, do us, what would you do for us, to see what she would say, because she'd have these really great collaboration ideas and different things she'd do if she was their PR manager. So from posting that PR series, she got a job with Beginning Boutique and was their social media manager and PR person. So that's really goes to show the impact that it can have in getting in front of all these big brands that you wouldn't necessarily get in front of the traditional way of sending the resume through. And then you've got different examples here. A lot of the trends at the moment is like, if X brand was a luxury brand, how would you redesign it? Or if I was the graphic designer for X brand, I would style this. So you can see the McDonald's designs that she's done there, and she's gone through and shown how she would redesign it. And then another one on the right where she's gone through and she's flicked the different Instagram profiles. So brands that she wants to work with, what would she do if she was their creative consultant? So her background is a before and after of what their feed looks like and what it would look like if they worked with her. And that's an immediate way, when that goes viral, to get in front of that brand and really stand out from the crowd with employment. We've got other examples of professions that you probably wouldn't expect to be on TikTok or whatever it might be. So if you are on TikTok at all, you will know about Fadan. She is a very well-known lawyer in Sydney, and she talks about a bunch of different things, but she does little cooking series or shopping, but she also gives examples of different law cases and her take on things. You've got Lola, who is a school teacher that posts a lot of school teacher content. Steph is a career coach that talks about different advice and tips and stories from her career as well. And then you've got Justin and different examples of people, whether that be in the real estate industry or mortgage brokerage or finance or whatever it might be, giving examples and talking through different areas and what they would advise. So the thing about these profiles is obviously they all take into consideration any relevant laws and regulations for their specific industry. So they're not out there showing photos of kids' faces from the school or talking about particular law cases or anything that's confidential or sharing client information. So they've all done it in a really strategic way that showcases their personal brand and really puts them ahead of other people, but they're not, putting themselves in any sort of situation with their current employer or for their business. Now we've got the creating content side of things, where that is where a lot of people might struggle with knowing what to do. If you've got your personal brand established and you've got a lot to talk about and a lot of information to share, creating the actual content might be where that feels like an issue. Obviously, we spoke about finding which platform and content really feels authentic to you, so it's a little bit easier. If you aren't someone that wants to jump on TikTok, then don't feel like you have to. It might be LinkedIn and posting updates on there for you, so that's great. So TikTok obviously being a little bit more on the creative side, trying to showcase any sort of skills that are relevant to that. And then LinkedIn, it could just be different updates or contributing to blog articles or those Q&As and different things as well. Obviously, knowing your target audience and where they're going to consume the content is super important. Staying consistent and just thinking that everything is content. So whilst you might think that it's quite boring, and you might think that whatever task you're doing or this event you attended, no one cares that I went there or no one cares that it happened. Just document everything, take photos of everything. You can do time-lapse videos of you making a particular project. It could be you filming yourself talking on a particular project, and you just keep it in your phone with no intention of posting it anywhere and have that ready to go because one day you might, right? So everything is content. It might be that you've attended an event and you take 1 or 2 photos there. And what you can do is do a little bit of a recap on LinkedIn, for example, and rather than just saying, I attended this networking event or I attended this conference or whatever it might be, you might do a little recap on the key takeaways that you received from it, what you found really exciting about it, and the value that you received from it. So that's showcasing your personal brand within that post and what you took from that. Making it engaging and encouraging discussion is also super important. So leaving with open-ended questions at the end, allowing for discussion, talking about different things. A good example is probably that I went to a Stephen Bartlett Diary of a CEO presentation here in Brisbane, and rather than just taking a photo and saying I went to this event like 500 other people did, you know, we all went to this event, but it's having your specific take on it and saying these were my key takeaways, this is what I found really valuable, and this is what I'm interested in. So it opens the door for conversations. So a lot of people had messaged me back being like, oh, I love, you know, Diary of a CEO book, or I listened to that podcast and I found that super interesting as well. So really opening the doors for engagement and allowing discussion from all of your content and being quite confident with it as well. I think if you overthink it and it feels really cringe and you're worried about what people are going to think, you can end up in a bit of a rut where you don't want to share anything or do anything about it. And I think just reminding yourself that you're taking your career into your own hands is super important to just staying confident and, yeah, reaching your target audience. So making yourself visible is also super important. So whilst you've got your social media presence, and that's really important if you've met someone at an event or in person, you want somewhere to send them to or somewhere to connect with them and follow up with a message, right? So gone are the days where you go to a networking event, you get the business card. I don't know about you, but if I get a stack of business cards from an event, they're going straight in my drawer and I'm not looking at them again. And they're not the first person I think of when I think I need a service. I'm not going to go looking through my business cards. I'm going to go online and look for those people. So, or think of people that I've connected with. So if you go to networking events, having that social media presence to connect with people on and keep up the conversation and get in touch with what they're doing and have them following where you're at and what you're doing is super important. Recommendation for anyone in Townsville would be the Spark Society that's just started up. That's a really good networking event that you can attend for young professionals, linking you with any opportunities, especially in the marketing field or any other creative fields. So definitely check that out if you are interested in attending those events. It's also really good attending like the Young Chamber events or anything else that you can find in your local area. Or if you're already in a company, attending those company workplace events too. I know sometimes it can feel a bit, if you don't want to go or it's boring or whatever it might be, you're just ready to get home. The value in showing up and being visible and at those events is really huge. So the more people that know you, the better. joining any sort of online memberships or groups within your niche. So connecting with like-minded individuals on different platforms. For me, I've joined different groups over the years, like a Cheers Squad group and Golden Brands, and that really connects all small business owners in the creative industry, which has been amazing. The amount of people I've met through that and the opportunities that come from knowing different people is huge. And then putting your hand up for different committees, groups, volunteer roles, whatever it might be to grow your profile and connect with people is really important. So for me, even just joining the events crew at JCU as a volunteer role, that's what got me my job at JCU. Even with my work now, I've put my hand up to join the association that looks after our industry, so I can be on the Emerging Leaders Council, and the connections that you make from those are huge. So definitely consider those different options. So your personal brand is one of your most valuable assets. It's something that opens doors for you. It propels you forward in your career, and it's your unique value. Building visibility and maintaining consistency, you can really leave a lasting mark in your organization or in your industry and beyond. Don't leave your career and your professional identity to chance. You really want to be able to curate this with what you want and what you're looking for and the opportunities that you're looking for. So, and it's something that no one can take away from you. This is your own unique personal brand. And again, as I said, even if you're selling businesses or moving careers, that personal brand that you've developed comes with you. So that's super important. Okay, I might open up to questions if anyone has any questions about any of those topics, or anything that we've shared or anything that come up.
I might kick off with one. Are there any unconventional social media strategies that you've seen work surprisingly well, especially for those just starting out?
Yeah, I think especially for the employee generated content has been really interesting, and having that sort of personal brand. The way that that's working now has really changed the whole industry in terms of employability, and that whole, I guess, look, especially even when I was starting, it was very much have everything on private and don't have that online presence. And it's really changed. Obviously, have your own personal Facebook page and whatever you want, and share photos of your kids or your dog and whatever you want on a personal account, but having that personal brand account somewhere to connect with other people career-wise is super important. So it's definitely changed, and it's a huge opportunity for anyone starting their career now to really get ahead, especially if you're graduating from university and you're with a whole cohort of people, to be able to have that personal brand established. And if there are any opportunities that are coming up in that industry, people are immediately going to think of you before starting to search and look through resumes and different things like that. So you'll find with an established brand, you've got people that are tapping you on the shoulder for certain opportunities. So yeah.
And then I guess off the back of the employee generated content, do you think that's sort of just a trend and it's going to pass? Or do you think it's more of like a strategy that all brands should start to adopt?
Yeah, I think it's been slow, fairly slow for people to adopt it. The brands that I put up before have been doing it for at least 2 or 3 years and have seen how it worked for them. So it's still a fairly new, I guess, trend or concept that's coming forward. But the entire user-generated content and influencer, I guess, market has taken a huge hit over the last few years, with more people leaning towards employee-generated content. And there's so many benefits for the business as well as the employees that I can't see it just being a trend. Like, even considering it's so much more cost effective than outsourcing paying someone, it feels more authentic, so people are more likely to trust it. We all know now if you're getting paid to sell something, so it's not going to work for marketing or sales. So having employees that you then feel connected to them, you like their personality, they show up consistently, and you feel that connection, you're more likely to trust the brand and the brand values from there. So I think a lot of brands will start seeing incredible results from EGC, and it'll probably be around for a while until the next best thing comes along. I'm sure it'll change eventually.
Yeah, for sure. We have a question from Lachlan, who says, do you think the JCU social media team should use employee generated content?
Yes, 100%. A good example of I guess, social media changing in that corporate landscape is the JCU social media channel. So you'll find many years ago, even when I was with there, it was very quite professional, and it was the same as all the other corporate brands and universities that you'd see that was quite LinkedIn focused. News articles, everything was like quite official, linking back to their website. Whereas now all of the universities are jumping on the bandwagon of TikTok and reaching their audience through doing different trends. So JC is a perfect example of that, and the cool content that you can see on TikTok, and you can see that's performing really well from that for them and reaching their target audience. So 100%, I think the JCU social media team should jump more into the employee generated content so that people can get to know that team and who they are. They'll like their personalities, they'll feel more trusted, they'll want to ask questions and feel more connected. So it's a win-win. And I think, yeah, something really easy too, because you don't have to worry about bringing in different people to be able to jump on socials. There's that consistent team that's showing up.
Yeah, that makes sense. I do have one final question, I guess, to kind of round it out. What is your elevator pitch?
Oh, mine. Okay, so my elevator pitch, I was actually practicing at the conference on Tuesday that I was at, because it keeps changing. And I struggle because I've got a full-time job and a side business. So it's usually quite adjusted depending on where I am. So generally, I'll talk through the fact that I'm a business development manager for a professional conference organizer. Generally, that means I have to go into what that actually means if I'm in a different industry. So the event on Tuesday was with small business owners that would understand Latte Social, and that makes sense, but their professional conference organizer probably wouldn't. So I'd go in and describe what a professional conference organizer is and what my role is. And then I'd say, because I've got a creative side, I like having a side business in social media. And then I say I elevate the online presence of brands and individuals, so that registers to them if they're looking for a personal brand or they're a business owner for their own brand, that I service those two markets. So that's how I've sort of structured mine, but it completely changes depending on if I'm at an event for a business events industry event. They just know that they already know what a PCO is and what a conference organizer does. So changes.
Yeah, I think that's a really good tip, I guess, to try and change and mold your elevator pitch depending on where you are and who your audience is.
Yeah, for sure. And I
Okay.
think even if you're at a networking event, and depending on what opportunities are there, is where you'd really target it as well. So if you were talking to people that could be future employers, for example, you would be verbally saying that you're looking for opportunities in X, Y, and Z, so that that registers to them. Because I think as people, we're immediately trying to connect the dots. So if we've got even another person that we know is hiring for that position, or our business is looking for an intern, or you know someone that's looking for a social media manager, whatever it might be, we're constantly connecting dots. So the more value and information you can give them, the better.
Yeah, cool. All right, we'll do one final question. What platforms do you use mostly to promote Latte Social and your personal brand?
Good question. I have gone with Instagram for my personal brand, mainly because that's where my target audience is. So my target audience being small business owners, or individual personal brands and creatives. Everyone's on Instagram for that purpose, so I can connect directly with small business owners on there. I know with TikTok, I like to keep that for my personal travels and different things like that. So yeah, that's where it suits me. And then LinkedIn is where I'd share more about my full-time job and really delve into the business events industry. So if I'm at one of those events for my full-time job, connect with people on LinkedIn, they can clearly see my role and my achievements in my role and what I've been doing. Whereas if I'm at an event with small business owners, we're usually connecting on Instagram and messaging from there. So that makes sense for that personal brand, my business.
Yep, cool. That makes sense. Um, Oh, sorry, we'll do one more. What is your opinion on Threads? This is an interesting one, actually.
Threads, I know.
Do you
I'm
think
so
Threads is going to die off? I'm very
It has.
curious.
I was really excited about it for a little while there. I was probably a bit of an advocate when it first started, and a lot of people were using it, and it quite quickly dropped off. And the thing about the new platforms, if it's not different enough, people end up sharing the same thing on every platform. So if you're already following someone on Instagram, and then they're sharing the same post on Threads. I don't really want to see it twice. So something that we work on with different brands is how you're leveraging the affordances of each different platform and showing up differently on each platform, because if you were posting the same thing, it would be boring. So I think what's happened with Threads is a lot of people started posting the exact same content that they were already posting on Facebook or Instagram, and it hasn't really taken off as much as I think we initially hoped it would. There's still a lot of people on there. If you go on there, there's still a lot of people engaging in conversation. And I think if you wanted to reach out directly to a particular brand, Threads is probably a good way to do it, considering they've got less connections and notifications through there. So I see a lot of even like the head of Instagram engages a lot more on there in terms of asking questions, because he's not bombarded with 10,000 comments. So yeah, there's definitely benefits to Threads, but I think it's going away.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how much longer it sticks around, or if it does miraculously take off. But yeah.
We'll wait and see.
All right, cool. Well, I think that will wrap it up. Thank you so much for coming along today and presenting. I'm sure everyone got lots of great insights and value out of today's session. Yeah, I'll let everyone go. If anyone has any other questions after the session, they're more than welcome to send them through to myself or Hannah. And obviously, if anyone wants to get in touch with Hannah, they can reach you at Latte Social on Instagram. Yeah, and I'll hand over to you if you have any final parting words.
No, thank you so much for having me. That was great. And yeah, more than happy to continue the conversation online or wherever you want to find me. So thank you so much.